Hello friends, welcome back to online lectures on soft skills. In the previous class, we discussed how a presentation can be made effective. Now, in this lecture, we are going to talk about speeches. As you remember well, in one of the classes we have talked about the differences between speeches and presentations. Here we will be talking about speeches for different occasions. Now you might have a question, and the question would be, do we need to give speeches as a professional? Presentation is okay, but why speeches? So the answer is that we are all human beings. We maintain social relationships not only in our private lives but also in our professional lives. And then when you are in a professional organization, there are also occasions where you may at times need to speak, and speak on occasions, and that may be speeches. Now, in a workplace, there are many such occasions. Imagine the day you joined your organization. In the early days, when you didn't have any idea, you had to listen to some of the talks by your unit heads, by your seniors, and then the next week you might have come across a function where some people from outside were visiting your organization. And in such a situation, some of the members of your unit who were to organize the function had certain responsibilities. One of those responsibilities was also to welcome the guest. Another responsibilities may be to introduce the guest or to speak certain things about the guests. So this is only one occasion. But then there can be many such occasions where there can be a gathering and you are supposed to give a speech. There is no chance of presentation there. There may be a person retiring from your unit, from your organization, and again you have to organize an event in his respect. Again, there is an opportunity for giving a speech. Sometimes some of your colleagues bring laurels to your organization, and there again the organization feels that their services have to be acknowledged. We have moments of pleasure, we have moments of pain, and being people of the same organization, we have to share it. We have to claim at times, we have to respect at times, we have to pay tributes at times, and for all these occasions we have to speak. That is why if you feel that even without speeches world could have been beautiful, you are perhaps in the wrong box. occasions at times demand, and when occasions demand, you also can be the person who has to give the speech. Now let us try to understand what sort of these speeches can be and how we can, because throughout some of the lectures we have talked a lot about preparation, practice of presentations, we have talked about the topics. In some way or the other, the same sort of preparation is required for speeches also. And you know, you will not be given time here as you are given in a debate, time to be given much in advance. You may have to speak there, maybe 1 or 2 days in advance you may be asked, but then you should remain prepared for such situations, because these situations may occur any moment. Let us try to understand what actually are the ingredients of a speech. You remember well that while presentations can be on complex and technical matters, speeches can be on matters which some way or the other are related to emotions, sentimentality, and that is how both of them differ from each other. But the same sort of parameters are applied when you have to prepare a speech. The first is topic, and for this topic, once again, here it is the occasion. If you are going to have speech for the speech class, naturally there will be numerous topics, but there also they will provide you not only the topic, they will provide you time, or you may decide both the topic and the time. Then comes language part. So when we talk about the language in a speech is different from the language in an oral presentation. In oral presentation, you are actually speaking in order to explain certain things. Here you are not explaining, here you are expressing it in a language that are occasioned for a particular occasion. That is why the language is soaked in emotion. The language at times may appear to be very ornate, maybe very flowery, but remember, even if the language is flowery, you cannot sacrifice the simplicity. I mean, let the language be simple, even if it is flowery. Language may be at times in a speech may be figurative, but it is figurative to an extent that the audience members, that the people watching, sitting, listening, they can understand. Because when you give a speech, it is not only a verbal, visual, but also a vocal one. And then you have style, which is very important. Style, we have already discussed a lot about style, but here when we talk about this style, style will differ. I mean, the presentation of the speech will differ depending upon the occasion. And then comes the pattern, which we have already discussed. So now we should try to understand what are these occasions, because these occasions will help you understand the type of these speeches. As we had said earlier, every speech and every presentation, while in presentation you may have some liberty, but in a speech, because there is no visual, there are no graphic details, there are no visual aids here. Here actually you only as a speaker are visual. You as a speaker have to demonstrate, and through your verbal ability, through your vocal ability, that is why what is of utmost importance here is the beginning and the closing. As I said in the previous lecture on oral presentation, that the beginning has to be very catchy or has to be very attractive. It has to be very catchy or attractive, because the people in front of you, they are listening to you and you have to capture them in the first instance. So both beginning and the closing should make the listener, while beginning should generate intimacy, because in the very first instance whatever you will speak, that will develop a sort of intimacy with the crowd, and closing will make the audience remember your last words. Now I am giving you a situation which all of you are familiar with, and my point to prove here is that even when your audience members, they are not ready to listen, you can make them listen by the beauty of the language and by the beauty of the opening or by the style. All of you remember the famous play by William Shakespeare, and the play was entitled Julius Caesar. You all know that Julius Caesar and Brutus were very good friends, but because of some conspiracy, Caesar was killed, and now Brutus had actually conspired with the conspirators and Caesar was killed. When Caesar was going to be killed, suddenly Caesar saw Brutus in front of him and had only the words, as he said, "It you too, brute." I mean, he could not understand that even Brutus, a friend of Caesar, could kill him. So, but anyway, Caesar was killed. Now Caesar had a minister, and that was Antony. Antony wanted to speak on the funeral of Caesar, but then, as you know, the conspirators would not allow Antony to speak. So some way or the other, Antony tried to create a situation that could be guaranteed, and it was guaranteed, because everyone believed that Caesar was a good human being, but when Caesar was killed, he was killed on the impression that Caesar was a traitor, Caesar was not a patriot. Antony wanted to disapprove of this charge, and that is why he some way or the other managed and got the conspirators ready that Antony be allowed to speak on Caesar's funeral, because Antony wanted the Romans to know that Caesar was not a traitor. So let us see how Antony begins his speech and how this beginning is an example of beauty, of subtlety, of how to open and how to captivate the crowd. So the very first words that Antony spoke, let us have a look at it. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Now when Antony spoke these things, the audience members, they all became captivated by these words, and then the later words that followed, I came to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do leaves after them, the good is oft entered with their bones, so let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus had told you Caesar was ambitious. If it were so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously hath Caesar answered. Here, under the leave of Brutus and the rest, for Brutus is an honorable man, so are they all honorable men, come I to speak in Caesar's funeral. He was my friend, faithful and just to me, but Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. Now see how this beginning was there, and this beginning suddenly not only captivated the audience, but then the audience generated a different sort of feeling and the mood of the audience changed. I mean, such is the efficacy, such is the power of a good opening, such is the power of a good beginning, such is the beauty of the language, such is the effect of the subtlety, such is the impression of thesis and antithesis that you can bring in your speech when you are going to open. So, half of the battle is won only in the beginning of the speech. That is why I say beginning should generate intimacy, and the audience members got so passionately involved in what Brutus was saying that after Antony was saying, so after Antony's speech was over, everyone started saying Caesar was a patriot, he was not a traitor. I mean, the feelings got changed. You too can change, my dear friends. Your audience you can bring to your own side. Let the beginning be attractive, let the beginning be captivating. Next is when you close the speech, because I have said not only the beginning but the closing is also important. And in the previous lecture on oral presentations, I had said that the closing has to be very effective, because the words which are uttered towards the end that actually leave a lasting impression on the mind of the audience members. Suppose you are going to speak in a function where people are going to get degrees. Suppose it is a convocation ceremony, fine, and you are the chief guest, because it is not only the art of, great is the art of beginning, as Longfellow said, but even greater is the art of ending. So how to end your speech? Now let us look at these lines, and let us also look at the last lines that also appear to be very emphatic. The speaker says, I congratulate all of you on being conferred the master's degree of an esteemed institution. You of course have earned this degree after hard labor, and hence you must understand its importance. I do hope you will use your knowledge in the larger interest of the society, but then you have to pass a greater examination, the examination of life. So all of you must remember, while you undertake your journey or start your journey, make what one of the famous poets said, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. If such is the closing of a speech, who will not remember? I think all of us will remember. So what I mean to say is, it is not only the beginning but also the closing of the speech that is important. Now we have already talked about the differences between speech and presentations. In speech the topic is complex, technical, it is more formal, whereas in speech you will find that it is more subjective, that objectivity is not there in the speech. Objectivity is a part of the oral presentation. Language also varies, as you have already seen, and then there is no use of visual aids in a speech. But then let us try to understand what are the several types of speech and what you should do when you are to give any of these speeches. First is a welcome speech. You will find if there is a function, maybe the chief guest will have to be welcomed, and you may get a chance to deliver a welcome speech. So when you deliver a welcome speech, what are you supposed to do? So first is a welcome speech. Then is an introductory speech, where you are going to introduce the chief guest to the audience. Then a felicitation speech, introductory, then felicitation. When a felicitation speech is given, we actually welcome a person, we felicitate or we celebrate a person's achievements. And then we have commemorative speeches, so where you are going to honor or you are going to remember somebody who was a great personality. Then you also have a chance to give a farewell speech or to be a part of the farewell speech, and then the vote of thanks. Now tell me, my dear friends, while in the beginning you might be thinking that what good are these speeches for you, don't you realize that you need to understand all these situations, because at any moment of time you may be asked to give such a speech. If it is a welcome speech, my dear friend, the welcome speech is about a person who has been invited as a chief guest. In such a situation, if you are given this responsibility, you need to gather the facts about the person, because such an information is very factual. So you have to gather the facts about the person, you also have to understand and you also have to remember the exact name of the person and his achievements, because you are welcoming him and you are presenting the speaker to the audience. And in such a speech you have to welcome not only the speaker, because you are the first person who is going to begin. You are also to welcome the audience members. Now let me give you a linguistic representation of how such a speech can be begun. Honorable Chairman, sir, dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, I deem it my proud privilege to welcome Professor Sib Kumar, an Indian English renowned poet, novelist, writer and teacher, to this conference. It is very generous of him to accept our invitation and be amidst us, to spend his valuable time and share his vast knowledge and experiences with the English teaching fraternity. His consent to be the chief guest in the inaugural function of this conference lends additional charm to the event. I am quite sure that his benign presence will not only guide us but also give a proper direction to the proceedings of academic deliberations. I also extend a warm welcome to all delegates who have come from far and wide and gathered by braving this winter season and are here to participate in this conference. Now see what has been done here. You are actually not only welcoming the chief guest, but you are also welcoming the audience members. But at the same time you have to mention who he is, why he is so important, and what makes him so important, and how the audience member are going to be benefited by his benign presence. Dear friends, when you have to give a welcome speech, you will find that you are not only creating audience a sort of interest in the speaker, but at the same time you are also giving a lot of respect to the chief guest. Such a situation may come. Next is introductory speech. In an introductory speech, of course, the person you are going to introduce will of course be a person like the one we mentioned earlier. He will be a man of rare quality, and at the same time when we are going to introduce him, we shall also be talking about his achievements and then why or what changes he has brought, because when we introduce him to the audience, not only the speaker or the guest will feel great about him, but remember, while you are going to do so, please do not speak too much or do not speak anything that can be embarrassing, or do not say anything which the person doesn't possess. Suppose we were to welcome or we were to introduce Sri Ambani. Now, what could have been the form of, what could have been the opening of our speech? It should have been begun on a note that I feel worth remembering. In the beginning, you will give all sorts of salutations, and then you will say, all of you, like me, feel blessed to be born in an age when a simple touch can connect us to our intimate ones, whom we can not only see but also talk to like in a real meeting. All this has become quite easier and cheaper than before, and when this difference becomes possible because of one person, we of course would like to meet him, to go thousand and thousand miles. But what if such a person is amidst us? And today we have the pleasure of meeting and listening to such a pioneer, Sri Mukesh Ambani ji, the chairman of Reliance Jio, which offers the policy of live and let live. It is my proud privilege, my dear friend, to introduce Sri Ambani to you. Sri Ambani, the worthy son of a worthy father, joined Reliance in 1981 and became its chairman in 2002. An innovator, revolutionary, Sri Ambani was awarded the World Communication Award for the most influential person in telecommunications by Total Telecom and Telecom Man of the Year by the Voice and Data magazine. Without letting you wait any further, let's invite Sri Ambani ji, who is also the chief guest today. May I request you all to welcome Sri Ambani ji with a huge round of applause and allow him to share his wisdom and vision with you. Now, when you give such a sort of introduction, the audience members, they feel more delighted, and their curiosity in the speaker also is raised to a great extent. Now, you can have a look at how the sentences have been framed, the short sentences, the beautiful choice of the words, and again the sort of appellations that are there on the person. So we have to do all this in order to make this event very successful, and this is how you can give an introductory speech. Next is felicitation. In such a speech, you are going to honor, or you are going to celebrate, you are going to acknowledge the services of a person for his achievement, and with an aim to heighten the audience's curiosity and admiration for the guest. Again, such a speech will also have so many good words about the person, and then you'll also talk about the sort of laurel or the sort of award, reward, recognition that the person has brought. You can always see how such a speech can begin. Sir, it is a very auspicious occasion for all of us that we have you in our midst. We offer you our heartiest felicitations on your nomination to the World Bank. We are proud of your achievement, sir, and your contribution to the field of finance makes us elated. Your services have not only changed the lives of farmers who work tirelessly without getting any credit. Sir, your innovative research and recommendations on farmers is an eye-opener, and your recommendation in respect of improving the everyday needs of farmers and your suggestion to empower them through government policies will always bring qualitative changes in the farmer's life worldwide. Your selfless service and sincere efforts in ameliorating the condition of poor farmers will always remain a sort of motivation for us all. Here you have seen how you have talked about the contribution of the person to the farmers and how you have heaped applause on him, and actually as a result you will find the audience members will be glued. Next is a commemorative speech. A commemorative speech is a speech where either you are going to talk about the gain or you are going to talk about the loss. In most of the situation, commemorative speeches are to honor the memory of a person who is not amidst us. But then we have to remember his contribution. Here the person is not, but then after his departure we are going to memorize, and that is why commemorative speeches you will most of the time come across, because if you are in organization such situations may be there. Now here you all remember the famous commemorative speech that was given by Pandit Nehru on the demise of Mahatma Gandhi. You see, the words chosen in such a situation is actually according to the occasion. Since it is a time of loss, the words gain a sort of figurative meaning the way the speaker uses it, and then also the tone will change. It will not be that sort of enthusiasm, but there may be a sort of loss, there may be a sort of pain in the voice. And as Pandit Nehru might have said that, he could have better realized, and we can also realize the way he had chosen the words. The light has gone out of our lives and there is darkness everywhere, and I do not quite know what to tell you and how to say it. Our beloved dear Bapu, as we called him, the father of the nation, is no more. Perhaps I am wrong to say that, nevertheless we'll not see him again as we have seen him for all these many years. Will not run to him for advice and seek solace from him, and that is a terrible blow, not to me only, but to millions and millions in this country. And it is a little difficult to soften the blow by any advice that I or anyone else can give you. Now here you could see not only the choice of the words is different, but the tone also is somber. The tone also has a sort of shock, the tone has a sort of sorrow, and when you deliver a commemorative speech you have to adapt yourself according to the situation. Then we come across farewell, which is actually a routine sort of activity in larger organizations. Any moment, any person, I mean especially the senior ones, they retire or they go to different organizations, and we have to deliver a farewell speech. It can be both given by us and it can also be given by the other person who is taking leave. Now in such a speech, either we are bidding a goodbye or the person is taking leave. So in such a situation, again the tone will become that of a sort of subdued tone. The tone will be low, and the emotion that will be there, again the emotion will be of a sort of dissociation. A person who has served us with so many years, we have been together, but then he is going to leave. So naturally, when you are going to give a farewell, you are going to talk about his association with this organization and also his contribution, but then at the same time you should say that you will lose him, you will often remember him. But when the person himself who is taking a leave, he has to give a speech that will again be full of emotion, but then one has to control the emotions, thank the organizers. He has to be polite, brief, and be very humble. Here is not a time to criticize, but then a time to realize that such a long association is coming to an end. Even a person who is leaving us, he should also, as a speaker, not exaggerate his own contribution, rather he should show his modesty and he should show his humility. Being polite, brief and humble, the task of a speaker in such a situation is to make a sort of realization that one very active member is going to be away from us, and these farewell speeches have to be drafted very carefully, because there is no amount of criticism nor too much of exaggeration about the person, since it is a leave taking ceremony. And then the last one is that of vote of thanks. You will find, whether you are going to organize a conference or an event or whatsoever, sometimes or the other, this responsibility of proposing the vote of thanks may fall on your shoulders also. So how should you do that? Here actually your task is to acknowledge the contribution and the way people have helped you. So you are going to thank everyone. It is actually a sort of thanksgiving, much like an acknowledgement in a report, but here you have to change the language. Of course you will be given a little time, but you have to make use of that little time, even though it is the last event, but then it is very challenging. You should first know who are the people you should thank, who are the people who actually deserve to be thanked. You can also make a proper order. When you make a proper order, you should follow who is senior, I mean the systematic way of thanking people. And when you are thanking them, please give the justification why you are thanking him. For example, we can say, I am thankful to Mr. such and such for his valuable contribution throughout this conference in a number of ways. It is really a matter of appreciation that even our supporting staff, they have rendered full support to us, so our thanks are also due to them. Meaning thereby you have to change the language and you have to think, you have to make everyone realize, and if possible you have to also in some way or the other provide some sort of humor, because this is the last time where people are going to be separate. You have to be brief, but at the same time you have to be warm. Dear friends, when you are going to speak for all these occasions, remember the way you prepare yourself, but then for such speeches, because these are all occasioned, there will not be an appointed time or 15 days or whatsoever. You need to practice yourself and get ready for giving such speeches. And before we give a close to our lecture, let me remember the lines of the famous Lord Buddha, who says, "The wise ones fashioned speech with their thought, sifting it as grain is sifted through a sieve." The implication is, when you are giving a speech, the main concern should be the thought, not useless thoughts, but thoughts, beautiful thoughts, valuable thoughts, as these thoughts have been filtered the way grain is filtered or sifted through a sieve. Dear friends, you have to work for a speech, and if you work for a speech and if you prepare yourself for every speech situation, you will always win. Work without hope draws nectar in a sieve. So whenever you are working for a speech, work hopefully, have faith in yourself, and please understand that if you put your honest efforts, that will always bring dividends. I hope you have been in a frame of mind after listening to these lectures on oral presentation and speeches, and you might be bubbling to create a speech and to deliver it. Deliver in the best possible manner so that your speech becomes a memorable speech. I thank you all. I thank once again all of you very much for listening patiently, and I wish you all a very nice day. Thank you very much.